Hey friends, Nokie here. Welcome to the Spice Up Your Intimacy channel. On today's video, I'm going to be talking about how one's past experiences can affect their sexual intimacy. This happens to both men and women. I'm sure some of you are going to relate to the content in this video, and for some you may have been wondering why you are facing challenges during sexual intimacy. This may be due to your past experiences. Well, before I get into the details of this video, can you please do me a favor? Go ahead and subscribe to this channel, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so that you don't miss any of my valuable content. And make sure you click the thumbs up button while you are at it. This lets YouTube know that this is the content that people want to see, and trust me, this type of content is needed. So how can one's past experiences affect their sexual intimacy? Some people have experienced trauma, and this trauma comes in many different ways. It could be sexual assault, molestation, rape, physical violence, neglect, to name just a few. All these past experiences can affect one's sexual intimacy, because sexual intimacy involves one being vulnerable and very close to another person. There has to be an element of trust. However, if somebody has experienced some past trauma, they may find this very challenging. They may have their guard up as a way of protecting themselves. The trauma may have occurred in their early years, maybe even before they were teenagers. As a child who experiences some kind of violation, whether it's sexual molestation or abuse of any kind, this can affect the way they are intimate with their spouse. After going through the trauma, their body is always on high alert. It puts these barriers to protect itself and to be defensive. And as a result of this, when one gets into their marriage and when it comes to being intimate with their spouse, their body might cringe, their body might send an alarm. Whereas with sexual intimacy, one has to feel safe and protected. But because of the past experiences, it may take therapy for somebody to overcome those traumatic experiences. If you are one of those people who has gone through any kind of trauma that is now affecting your sexual intimacy, I do highly recommend that you seek professional help. And this way, a therapist can help you overcome those past experiences to a point where you start being comfortable being intimate with your spouse. Okay, so if you are one of those people, I really do recommend that you seek professional help in this regard. Okay, moving on. Another way in which past experiences can affect one's sexual intimacy in their marriage is family background. You know, most of us, when we grow up, we were told how bad sex is. We were told all these negative things about sex. We were told to keep our skirts up, and for boys, they were told to keep their pants and zips up because sex was viewed as this bad thing. The issue with this kind of teaching, and I know I have mentioned this before in some short form videos, the issue with this is when these young people, and as they grow up and get into their marriages, all of a sudden they're supposed to switch this light on of enjoying sex or being a sex goddess and singing on the chandeliers in their matrimonial bedroom. This becomes challenging because all along they were told how bad sex is. I feel strongly that the narrative and the education towards sex should change and be addressed in a way that you express to your children. For those of you with children, you express that sex is a good thing. However, if it is done before marriage, there are some circumstances, and these circumstances can come to haunt them and affect their future. However, stress that sex, when it is done at the right time within marriage, it is supposed to be a beautiful thing. But when it is done outside of marriage, before one is married and just for fun, it may produce very, very dire and undesirable results. Now, talk to me in the comments. Are you one of those people who grew up with this viewpoint of how bad sex is, and then all of a sudden when you got married, you were supposed to be enjoying sex, you're supposed to be vulnerable, you're supposed to be this sex goddess and be satisfying not just to yourself but your husband as well, because remember, it takes two. How did you overcome that? If you are now enjoying your sexual intimacy moments with your spouse, what did it take for you to get to where you are now? I know for some, you may definitely need to go through therapy to overcome the narrative that you grew up being told of how bad sex is. In other words, you have to unlearn those things that you were told about sex. Okay, family background can affect the way one views sex. If sex was spoken about in a negative way within your family as you're growing up, and all of a sudden you have to view sex as this beautiful thing, that can be very challenging. That change can take time to come about, especially if sex was viewed as shameful and with guilt. Then this child, as they grow up, that is what they are going to carry. The way you had or you experienced the way sex was viewed or talked about in your family, one can carry that into their marriage. There are also some people who experience some bullying, and as a result they have a low self-esteem, maybe from bullying at school. Maybe they were teased or mocked about the way they look, their body and all, and then all of a sudden one has to be vulnerable and be naked in front of their husband. This can be very challenging. Body shaming can affect the way one views sex. So if one was bullied about how their body looked, they will carry that throughout their teen and adult years, and this will affect their sexual intimacy. It will take some therapy and a shift in the mindset for one to regain their confidence and be bolder again. And it also takes an understanding spouse, a spouse who knows how to communicate, a spouse who knows how to encourage and speak positive things into the spouse's life. So teamwork here will be needed. I also want to encourage those of you who have experienced those past experiences to open up to your spouse and share with him those things that have a potential or that already are affecting your sexual intimacy. This way you can work together as a team to overcome those past experiences. Communication patterns or intimacy in a negative way. If one grew up in an environment where sex was not talked about, or not to speak up, or a home where they didn't speak about certain topics, where talking about sex was taboo, this is going to lead into one holding back and not being open about their true feelings, and not being open about their desires, and not being open about how they feel because of the way they grew up and the way they communicated about such topics when they were growing up. You know, I've heard of couples who don't even discuss sex, and yet that's why they are married, right? But when it comes to discussing sexual intimacy issues, it's like sex is a taboo subject. For one to enjoy and to thoroughly be involved in their sexual intimacy, I do highly recommend that you have open communication, because it is through open communication that one is going to express the way they feel, their desires. One is going to express what is comfortable and uncomfortable during their sexual intimacy experience. Another way in which past experiences can affect one's sexual intimacy in their marriage could be past bad relationships. If somebody was in an abusive relationship, in a controlling relationship, whether emotionally or physically, this can affect one's sexual intimacy in their marriage, because like the previous point, they may have a hard time trusting a person, and it may take time for one to start trusting and to start opening up and to enjoy intimacy yet again, especially if whatever they went through was physically abusive, emotionally abusive, they were being controlled. You know, all kinds of abuse that you can think of, it can affect one's sexual intimacy. Another way in which one's past experiences can affect their sexual intimacy in marriage, maybe because of physical limitations or health reasons. Somebody might have gone through a major surgery or something that happened concerning their health, that now it is almost impossible to enjoy sex. This again will need to be addressed by a professional, and of course marital counseling even during your marriage may be necessary. Fortunately, some of these things can be reversed. I want to believe that most of these things, with good professional help and a lot of therapy sessions, these issues can be addressed. If that is you, I encourage you to seek professional help. A professional is going to curate and come up with a good plan that is going to help solve your issues. You know, I've heard of women who have experienced very violent or aggressive, unenjoyable sexual experiences that made their body tense up because the person was so aggressive. The person did not care about how their partner was feeling, and some of these experiences were non-consensual, which means there was no consent whatsoever. Okay, my friend, it is by overcoming all these challenges that I've mentioned that will help you have a very spicy, intimate relationship with your spouse. If by any chance you want to know how to spice up your intimacy, shoot an email to info@spiceupyourintimacy.com and tell me what challenges you are facing. I am a relationship intimacy coach. So if you want to know some tips and tricks on how you can spice up your intimacy, hey, send me a message and we'll see how we can help you spice up your intimacy. I'm also going to leave the details on how you can book a one-on-one coaching session with me in the description box below. Until next time, my friend, remember to do small things with great love. From my heart to yours, keep it spicy.